In today's conversation, we talk with Jenny Wanger. She's an expert in product operations, and she's going to explain to us why product leaders should care about creating a culture of product operations.
Yeah, thank you. It's lots of fun to be here. I'm excited about this. I am one of those people who keeps gravitating towards spaces and roles that are right on the edge of things. So I discovered that I was doing product management work before the product management term was really popular at that company. And over time realized that that was actually the space I was in and the things I was doing. And as I grew in my product management career, the same thing kept happening where I was gravitating to how the team works together, and ended up discovering that I had been doing product ops for a number of years without it ever being formally called product operations. So I've been in product for 10 plus years in a mix of B2B and B2C companies. Recently ended up doing some entrepreneurial work, starting an initiative at the Linux Foundation. And after that, decided I wanted to go back into product and started my own product consulting agency focused on product operations and helping teams figure out how to navigate the world of product operations, especially if it's something that's new to them or something where they're not dedicating a full-time team to it, but where they still need to make sure that they're figuring out deliberately how their product culture works.
You are a consultant, you are an expert in product operations, you work a lot with different teams and product leaders to help learn, adopt, improve product operations. But for people like me, and I bet for a lot of people out there, it's not clear what is product operations. And in one of your because you write a lot, so in one of your articles, you even write, every company has product operations, whether they know it or not. So what is product operations?
Product operations is how your team builds product. And so product strategy is going to be dependent upon your industry. It's going to be dependent on your on your company strategy, on the goals that you're trying to hit, and it's going to change from company to company. What actually is involved in product operations is going to be consistent from one company to another. And so one of the reasons that I love working in product operations is because it is such a critical piece of what makes your product culture. If you want your product culture to be customer-centric, where people are building things that solve real customer needs, then you need to make sure that you have the operations in place so that it's easy for your product managers to talk to customers. If you want to have good communication with your stakeholders, you need to make sure that you need to have product operations in place that make it clear of how your product managers actually communicate their roadmaps, communicate what they're working on, because those are the things that keep everybody in the loop. So these activities exist in every single company, and they're much more common across product organizations from one company to the next. And so when I talk about product operations, there's 4 main areas that I focus on. One is knowing your customer, right? So user research and understanding what your users are doing, accessing them. The second is understanding your data. So your product analytics, how are people actually behaving within your system? The third is team communication. So how are product design, engineering, sometimes product marketing, but those core groups that are actually working within the product, how are they communicating with each other? And then the fourth is cross-departmental communication. So looking at how the product team communicates out with stakeholders, and that includes things like how is go-to-market movements working? Does everybody know what's on the roadmap? All of those different things that keep the whole company aligned around what the product team is doing.
What do you say to those companies that are very hierarchical, so that product people, only some people can talk to the customers and not everybody else? And now you have product owners that are focused on just execution without really talking to the customers.
Yeah, so when you're in a company like that, where you've got your product team really kept away from the customers, you have to then say, okay, our culture can't be customer-centric, right? Or else we have to change that. But we can't go to these product managers and say, we want you to build things that the customers really want, solve their needs, and then at the same time say, but you can't talk to the customers, right? Because those two things are at conflict with each other. And so what I do there is I work on, okay, what can we change? And if that's something that we can't change, then what kind of product culture can we build? And, what does that mean for the company? And it's a difficult conversation to have when it's that kind of a situation.
We can even acknowledge that we are not customer centric. Right? Don't pretend we are when we're not empowering the product owners to do that, right?
Exactly. And one of the things then that I will work with a client on is, okay, can we get one team access to a couple of customers and see what happens, right? Like, can we get a win, right? Can we start this broader company change, right? This broader company cultural change by finding one little wedge where we can make something work. And maybe we can set a goal to get to being that customer-centric company. And so I'm not saying that it's never going to happen, but you have to admit that that's not where you are today. When I talk about understanding your data, there's two key areas. One is product usage, right? Very basic product analytics, telemetry. How are people actually interacting with your product, with your features? And then the second piece is, how does that connect to the business, right? So can you connect product usage to revenue, to customers? Sometimes those are within the same system, sometimes they're within separate systems. But one of the things that I've learned as a product manager is that keeping those systems working is hard. Events are constantly getting accidentally changed. Things are failing. Data that looked like it was correct last week isn't working this week. And so it's very easy for that data to all sort of slowly get out of alignment over time. And a lot of what product operations does is focuses in on that data governance piece, making sure that you can get everything back to alignment, back to a point where you can trust the data. I'm not going to say 100% accuracy. I don't know that any product has that level of confidence in their data, but getting to the point where you can say, this is good enough, I can make good decisions from it.
Awesome. And then the other two areas are related to communication, inside the team communication and inter-team communication. Can you explain a little bit what you mean by that?
Yeah. So inside the team, right, it's very simple is everybody on the same page? Do the engineers understand the why behind what they're trying to build? Do the designers talk to the engineers well and actually collaborate in order to make sure that things are moving smoothly? Can everybody find the documentation they need in order to make the right decisions? How do all of these things work together? It's very easy for a company to fall back into the habit of product talks to design sends something back, product hands it to engineering, says go build this, engineering builds it, it ships, and everybody's like, okay, that kind of worked. But when you actually have everybody on the same page saying, what is it that we're trying to build? And that's that also comes back to, at the end of the day, an operations thing, right? One of the stories I love to tell about this is there was a time we were working on a new feature, and it was a small feature, but it was just like people were getting confused by this screen. We wanted to fix it, simplify the flow a little bit. And so I had worked with design, came up with this new idea. We were presenting it to the engineers in a grooming session, and a QA engineer said, I'm sorry, but you said that this was our goal. The design you're presenting is just shifting that problem to one screen later. It doesn't actually solve this. It doesn't actually solve anything. And he was 100% right. And what had happened was, over time, we had worked to make sure that everybody was aligned on the goals, that everybody understood what we were doing. We had really good communication practices. And so he was able to have that insight and make that point. And I was totally thrilled to go back to the drawing board on this problem, because I had been, he had saved me from making a mistake. He had saved the team from making a mistake. So those are the things I think about when I think about inter-team communication. In terms of interdepartmental communication, right? Product can't just ship things and then say, okay, sales, good luck, see you later. Product needs to make sure everybody's on the same page and it falls on there, right? With everything else we're supposed to be doing as product managers, we're also supposed to be doing this, is making sure that everybody has the information about what the product is in order to support it and sell it and make sure it keeps growing. And so a lot of what this comes down to, I look at it in two major categories. On one side, it's road mapping, right? So what is coming up? Does everybody know what's on the agenda, why it's on the agenda, what goals we're trying to hit as a product team? The other side of it is the go-to-market. So as something is about to be launched or when it is launched, making sure that everybody from customer success and customer support, sales, marketing, finance, everybody has the information they need in order to make sure that the product launch goes well. Because if you launch a new feature or you launch, a new product line or capability, and your customers don't get to hear about it, it's not going to succeed. You're not going to hit your targets. You need to have the entire company on board in order for the product itself to work. And it is a team sport. And so that's the final piece of product operations, is that interdepartmental communication, making sure that go-to-markets go well, making sure everybody knows what's coming up, and also getting that feedback back in, right? Your sales team is out there talking to your customers every single day. They are a treasure trove of user data, right? And so you need to make sure that they have ways to get that data back to you, to work together to come up with what should be next, what's the right thing to do. And so the other piece of it, right, taking everything back in, making sure you're taking advantage of the knowledge of the entire company to make the best product decisions possible.
What is the responsibility of the product leader in supporting all of this?
Yeah, so in most companies, the product leader is responsible also for the product operations. And that's a lot of why product operations in most companies kind of happens by accident, right? Is because in terms of your list of responsibilities as a leader, right? Product strategy, executive stakeholder management, people management of the product people, your direct reports, product operations ends up being at the bottom. And so, right, so build it, making sure that you have a clear way of doing roadmaps so that everybody can communicate in the same way. That's going to be way lower on your list than any of those other things. Which is why I think product operations as a discipline has been emerging, because rather than expecting the product leader to do it, it's a different model where you're actually getting a person to focus on it exclusively as their responsibility and move all of these things forward. And they're so critical to the efficacy of your team. They're so critical to the efficiency of your team. And so if you follow the path of most companies where you just sort of let it go and see what happens. And every so often, when you have a little bit of a slow week, you can do a little something for it. That doesn't get you very far. The other strategy I've seen is that it can be used as a good growth opportunity for product managers. And that's how I got my start in product operations, was that a manager of mine saw, that I wanted to move into product leadership and take some steps there, and said, okay, well, why don't you handle the change management around, and it was actually around our prioritization system, right? Create a system for this, make it standard across the company, and figure out how to do this. Get all the stakeholder input. And so that was my introduction to product operations, was as a senior product manager, to look to grow and practice some of those influencing activities.
Or maybe bringing in an external consultant, somebody that can guide this process.
Yeah, and an external like there's a lot of product operations. There's a lot of things where you can set up a system, and then the setup of the system takes a lot of work, and the maintenance of the system takes a lot less work. And so that's where a consultant really can make a lot of sense, because you can bring somebody in, and they can actually go ahead and set up road mapping systems or prioritization, customer interview processes, create structures around how you're organizing your documentation, all of these different things that product ops does. You can bring somebody in, they can set up those structures, go through a couple of cycles with the team to make sure that everybody actually knows how to use it, right? Because that's the other key thing, is that I'm sure this has happened to you, right? I've got one client, they brought in a road mapping tool because they said, well, nobody knows what we're working on. So let's bring in a road mapping tool and that'll fix it. Except that the thing that they didn't acknowledge was that they didn't actually create any structure or cadence or time for their product managers to go into the tool in order to update it. And so it was like pulling teeth, they came to me and they said, we don't know why is nobody using this tool? Like, it's not working for us. Like, what's the problem? And I'm like, well, you need to, like, you didn't change the processes. You just added another piece of work to your product manager's plates, right? So it's really important not just to set up the systems, but then to work with the whole team to figure out how do those systems fit into your regular cadence of work. What can they replace, right? How can they they should always be finding a way to use these systems to free up product manager time, not consume more of it. And so, yeah, that's where a consultant can really help, because it's not only setting up the tool according to best practices, but then it's working with the team on how to actually use those tools within their processes, and make it part of the flow, part of the day-to-day, so that it actually sticks.
One of your quotes, give the team permission to not do certain things so that their time can be freed up.
Yeah, that I hold by that, right? Like, it's especially, product managers want to do everything. And I'll admit that's something, especially as a more junior product manager, that I really struggled with. I thought that I had to have every detail lined up and explained out. And as I've gotten more experience, I've realized, oh, wait, that was taking up I was spending, 30% of my week, all of my time just writing up detailed descriptions of products and how they're supposed to function, and, whether a screen should be sliding in or dropping in, and all of those different things. And it did lead to a very clean product, but I think it both disenfranchised the engineers on the team from being true partners. And also, just, if I wasn't spending that time on that, like, what could I have done? I could have, probably done some much better work. I spent more time talking to customers, right? Doing the things that really matter, where I could really deliver value.
I guess the difference of the gap between ideal and reality, because I think what we have been talking so far are all great things, right? But what is the reality out there, and how do we move from reality to like a more ideal state?
Yeah, absolutely right. So we read these, we read the product management books, and you say, oh, that sounds amazing. You're talking to customers all the time, and you're always making a decision based on the highest priority items and problems to solve, and measuring the impact of everything, and that's incredible. And I come into these companies and my clients are always like, why are we having so much trouble with this? Like, why can't we just be doing, have like a clear, like, I feel like we're the only ones who don't have a clear strategy. And I turn to them and I say, no, every company struggles with it, right? Like, there's somebody on, one of my favorite lines that I say is that the most common stakeholder refrain is, what's on the roadmap. You can share the roadmap in every way possible, and I promise you, you will still have at least one person on your executive team that asks you once a month, what's on the roadmap? I don't know. And you'll be like, well, here's the link, and here's the video, and here's the meeting that you were at where I presented what was on the roadmap. And here's like all of these different things. And they'll just be like, oh, I don't remember that, right? Like, there's the ideal situations of everything, and then there's the realities that we live in, and those are much more complicated. They're much messier. And so, yeah, as you've said, right, like, it's change, it's creating change, and that's hard, and it takes mental energy. And so one of the other reasons, that I talk about, like, what can you give people permission not to do, is because if you want them to do more of the right thing, learning how to do that right thing is going to take up more time, and you need to then give them the space to learn. You need to give them the space to get used to it. And then once they've done that and they get a little better at it, you get some of those efficiency gains. But at the beginning, it's going to be messy. And so I think a lot of product people put pressure on themselves, put pressure on their teams to always be performing better. And the reality is that even, the companies that people hold up as being the best product management companies in the world still don't have everything perfect, right? They do not measure the impact of everything. They are not running the most efficient ship ever. Developers are not always happy. Everybody is not always floating on clouds. The reality is that building products is hard, it's messy, and that's the case at every company.
Maybe how you help somebody do that, or yeah, anything else?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that I talk to people about a lot is, okay, so I've acknowledged that product operations is not something we've been investing in, but it is something I want to invest in, right? And so how does that work? How do I start there? And so the first thing I suggest for any team, right? Ultimately, product operations, you have to treat it just like you treat anything else in product management. Understand your users, collect your data, come up with your ideas, run your experiments, right? Do your go-to-market exercises. You have to do all of those same steps with product operations that you do with product management. So the first thing is understand the current situation. Run a product operations assessment. Evaluate your company against those 4 areas of product. Where are you doing really well? Where are you struggling? Make sure that you're collecting data in a way where people feel comfortable sharing it honestly, right? That there's some anonymity. That's one of the benefits, I think, of bringing an outside consultant in. When I'm talking to your team, they're quite comfortable sharing things with me that they might not be willing to share with their direct manager. And because outside consultants sort of have this magic of the confidentiality cloak. And so I can actually get a very quick assessment, a quick understanding of how things are working because I get those honest bits of feedback. But after running the assessment, you can then identify what are the key areas, where are things going well? Are there things you can do to boost those up even further and take further advantage of them, right? Use your strengths to your advantage. And then where are the biggest areas of concern? And making sure that you, right, like making sure that you include those stakeholders in that analysis too. You need to make sure that you've got voices from across the company, that you're not just asking the product managers how product operations is going, but you're getting that 360 analysis. Got your prioritized list now of problems that you want to solve. Go do your research. One of the beautiful things about product is that there is a lot of good writing out there on any problem you might have had. There's probably somebody who has also had that problem and has shared something about it. So come up with your ideas, prototype them, check them out, talk to your stakeholders about how they're going, see if something resonates or what they say, like, oh, that would make this thing so much easier for me too, versus, oh, how would I make that thing work? How would I have time for it? Right? Those kinds of feedback of your prototypes, it was really helpful in terms of figuring out where you should be actually running your experiments. When you run your experiments, you see how it goes, you measure, you get your feedback, you slowly roll it out to the whole company. But it's a product management process. And so the more that you can treat it with that same mentality, the better off it's going to go.
So Jenny, how can people connect with you? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Easiest way to find me is probably on LinkedIn. I'm at Jenny Wanger, Wanger, a little bit of a funny spelling there, or jennywanger.com. That's my website. You can find me there and grab time with me. So would love to connect and hear from anybody who heard this talk and what they thought of it.
It was awesome. Thank you. It was so great to have you here.
Yeah, I'm glad we found the time to do this.